Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mary Rubenis, and I am from the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, and I am the Outreach Manager for the Mass Able Savings Plan. I am excited to be doing this webinar today with Kathy Kelly from Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. She's a benefits counselor with Mass Rehab Commission, and she's going to really lend some real life insight as to ABLE accounts and SSI benefits, and just the some of the complexities with those two things in terms of navigating benefits. So before we get into the webinar, I wanted to just share this next screen with you that just kind of tells you you'll all be muted. There are some handouts that you can grab that are in under handouts that you can grab the links for. There's a PDF of the slides. There's also an attainable extra fact sheet that's there as well. If you want to ask a question, you can do that in the question box. I think we're going to try to take most of those toward the end of the webinar. And that's essentially it. And so I also wanted to share Kathy. We had some trouble with Kathy's webcam, so she's going to be able to speak, but you won't actually see her. So I just wanted to share that as well. And so I will start the attainable slides first. And I think I'll probably just wait until I get to Kathy's slides to just read her bio. So I'll just go directly into my slides. I'll talk a little bit about ABLE and attainable. And then Kathy will go into her slides and talk about the benefits piece. And so just a little bit about MEFA and what we do. We are a not-for-profit state authority created in 1982, and essentially our mission is to help families plan, save, and pay for college. We do that through just free guidance around the whole process. We also offer some tax advantage savings plans, attainable. This ABLE account is one of those. We also administer the Massachusetts 529, which is the college savings plan. And we also do private loans as well. And so in the next slide, I'll talk about back in 1999, when the Massachusetts 529 was launched, MEFA partnered with Fidelity to manage the 529 college savings plan. So when Attainable was launched back in 2017, Attainable is an ABLE account and it's a 529A. And so it was natural for us to partner with Fidelity to manage these accounts as well. And so if you're going to open one of these accounts, you do it through Fidelity. I'll share the link later. But again, that's how we partnered with them from our previous relationship for the regular college 529 program. And then when, like I said, Attainable was launched, we partnered with them to manage these accounts as well. And so what is the ABLE Act? The acronym actually stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience, and it amended the federal tax code back in 2014, and it added these section 529As or ABLE accounts to the tax code, the 529 tax code. And so the legislation established these accounts. They're tax-exempt accounts for someone who's eligible with a disability to use for qualified disability expenses, and it allows them to still keep their eligibility for federal public benefits. And so this actually just happened this year. It was the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I always like to share this slide just because ABLE was one of the most significant pieces of disability legislation to pass since the ADA passed, which was 30 years ago. So, and that just celebrated an anniversary this past summer. And so for this to come about was very significant. 85% of Congress supported it. And so it was just a phenomenal piece of legislation to come about. And so how do you become eligible to open an ABLE account or an Attainable account? Attainable is the brand name, but it is an ABLE account. It's available nationwide. You don't have to be a Mass resident to open one of these. It's available to anyone, across the country. The disability has to have occurred prior to the age of 26. And if the individual is eligible to receive SSI or SSDI due to their disability and they meet that age requirement, then they're automatically eligible. or Social Security has a list of compassionate allowances. If you have one of those, then you're going to be eligible. Or if you're essentially you're self-certifying that whatever type of physical, mental health condition, meets one of these Social Security criteria, then you're going to be eligible to open one of these ABLE accounts. And so these are some of the qualified expenses for attainable or an ABLE account. It's going to be things like healthcare. You can use it to pay housing, which is great. You can use it for education, so to pay tuition, obviously books, buying a computer, transportation, assistive technology, employment training, PPA type services, and essentially just basic living needs. If you're going to be buying clothing, food, you can use it to pay for those expenses as well. And so really the benefit of an ABLE account, and really what they were designed to do, was to allow the account owner or the beneficiary is the person with the disability of an ABLE account. It allows them to save over $2,000 without it affecting their federal benefits. Like I just mentioned, the account is owned by the person with the disability, and it's really about providing the individual with more financial independence, investment opportunities, and tax benefits. And there are multiple tax benefits that come with an ABLE account. Just simply, the money that you're making, that you're earning in these accounts, there's no federal tax on that money that you're making. And also in Massachusetts, there's no state tax on those earnings as well. And some other tax benefits I'll talk about in an upcoming slide. And then just these are some of the account features, I guess, or caps for attainable. 15,000 in a calendar year is what you can contribute in an ABLE account. SSI is protected up to $100,000, meaning if you are getting SSI, you can save up to $100,000 in an ABLE account with no impact on your benefits. The max that you can earn and also put into one of these accounts is $400,000. And then these are some of the tax updates that I just wanted to cover quickly. The first one is this ABLE Financial Planning Act. And essentially, as long as the beneficiary is the same individual on both accounts, or a beneficiary, a family member, or one beneficiary is a family member of the other, meaning sister, brother, you can now transfer funds from a regular 529 color savings plan into an ABLE account with no tax or penalty, up to the $15K per year. The other one is this Able to Work Act, which allows the person with the disability, the beneficiary account owner, if they're working, they can contribute over the annual limit of $15,000 into their ABLE account. The additional amount they can contribute is up to $12,490 for 2020. And then just something to keep in mind, if you do take advantage of that additional contribution, you cannot participate in the employer's retirement plan. You can't do both. So you have to choose one or the other. And then just lastly, on the FAFSA, which is the Federal Application for Federal Student Aid, you don't have to list the funds in an ABLE account on the FAFSA. So if you have an ABLE account and you're going to be going to school, it's not going to, greatly affect your eligibility for financial aid because they're excluding it as an asset, which is great. And then these are just some resources that I always share in all my webinars. And the first one is ABLE National Resource Center, or ablenrc.org. It's a great place to go to for everything you want to learn about ABLE. They do a lot of webinars. I encourage you to follow them on social media. You can also compare just a lot of information there. So it's a great resource. The MEFA site as well, we have a dedicated landing page for attainable. So I encourage you to go there. And this is the landing page, fidelity.com/able, where you would go to sign up for an account. And then lastly, we have, you can sign up for registration for emails, and you would find out about the webinars that we're offering, upcoming changes to ABLE, or just really anything new, disability blog content that we post. You can sign up for our emails on that page as well. And then this is just a screenshot of Social Security actually has a good amount of information on their site related to ABLE and talking about how it intersects with benefits. And so this is the POMS, or Program Operations Manual system. And this really goes into how ABLE intersects with Social Security. So I just like to share it with people just so you become familiar with what's there. And then lastly, this is just an additional resource that popped up during COVID. It's through the National Disability Institute, or NDI, and they actually help to manage ABLE National Resource Center. And so they launched this really great resource during COVID that's free, that folks can go to this Financial Resilience Center and they can get help in financial planning or counseling. And they also offer some online financial wellness training. So this is the landing page, nationaldisabilityinstitute.org. Financial Resilience Center that you would go to just to learn more about this. So it's a great resource, and like I said, it's free. So I've been trying to share it with folks during this time. And then lastly, this is my contact info, my email, mrubenis@mefa.org. And these are all the channels that MEFA is on: Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube, that we share our content, obviously disability related content related to ABLE. So I encourage you to follow us there as well. And now I am so happy to introduce Kathy Kelly, who I met, gosh, I don't know, I feel like it's been a few years now, but we met, also just out in the field doing, seminars when we were still able to do those. And so I really love to be able to share the ABLE information with her, because she can talk about the benefits piece. So I just wanted to introduce her and welcome her. Kathy has been working in the human services field for over 30 years. She's currently working as a benefits counselor with the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission and as a support broker with the ARC of Massachusetts. Kathy's an expert in transition and has provided guidance and support for students, families, and school systems, and she particularly enjoys working with students and families as they prepare to make their transition to adulthood by helping them to develop a realistic future vision and goals that are person-centered and focused on their individual strengths and their needs. She understands the state, nonprofit, and private system and knows how to navigate them to maximize planning. And her mission is to ensure that everyone has access to successful outcomes in life, which I think we all want that as well. So Kathy, welcome. And I will click through your slides.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, super. Okay, before we move on to the first slide, I want to just mention, if you're still considering whether or not to get Social Security benefits for your son or daughter, I'd like to mention that they can be really important, and they can help individuals who have disabilities and limited income make ends meet and practice independence by helping to pay for household expenses. So it's really a benefit that you really should consider if you haven't already. So let's start with the first slide.
Okay, let me just click through here. There we go.
So there are two types of benefits that the Social Security Administration administers. There's Title II benefits, which are actually Social Security benefits. We call them SSDI. There's a lot of acronyms in the world of benefits and human services. So SSDI, you can only receive that benefit if you have a work history and you've earned, you're insured through your work history. Students receiving this benefit are doing so on the work record of another person, so it's usually the parent. If the parent is deceased or retired or on disability themselves, a young adult could be receiving this benefit. But typically, students are receiving SSI, who I work with, and that's Title 16, and it's Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. It's not Social Security. It's actually administered through the Department of Treasury. It's welfare. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about that on the next slide.
Okay.
Oop, one more back. Okay, to be eligible for SSI, you have to first prove that you're disabled. You also have to be poor, unfortunately, so you have to prove that you have assets no larger than $2,000 in your name. And that's why ABLE is a really good choice for folks, because you've heard from Mary that you can put those assets that are over 2,000 safely into an ABLE account now. If a children is under 18 and living with their parents, they're going to deem the parents' income. So many students are applying for SSI for the first time at 18 if their parents are not poor. Right now, with the current situation with the current COVID virus, we typically say the best way to apply is to go in person to the Social Security office in your area and apply, because you're doing so, face to face with a Social Security employee, and it's a lot less work in terms of applying. But right now, obviously, the offices are closed. We have had some parents call the offices, and some of the area offices are doing the interviews over the phone. So I still say the best way to submit an application is to do so by calling the office first to see if they'll interview you online, over the phone. Otherwise, there is an online application you can access when you apply. It's a little bit longer and a little bit more complicated, but you can effectively apply online. I recommend, if you have any questions about applying or any concerns, to call me before you do, because I can give you a checklist of the things that you're going to need to apply. I can give you some tips of how to answer your questions, and just kind of give you an idea of what to expect in that arena. So let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
So I mentioned already that most folks are applying at 18. Some have already had it at 18, and there's not much you need to do. Social Security typically reaches out to you, but you might have to call them. But if you're applying for the first time, as I mentioned, they're not going to deem the parent's income anymore, so it's just their record. It's just their assets. It's their bank accounts. It's all about them, nothing about the parents. You also will probably have to appoint a representative payee to manage the cash benefit that you'll be receiving in a bank account. And I usually mention that just because you've become the legal guardian or not, that doesn't give you the rep payee status. Social Security will guide you through that. They'll provide a letter for you that you can bring to a bank so you can open a bank account, and you'll share responsibility for that account if your son or daughter is not able to do so. And then what they're going to do if you become eligible is they're going to decide what that amount is going to be. And let's go to the next slide so I can show you with a visual.
Sure.
So there are 3 levels or categories of living situation, that's Social Security language. In the full benefit, if your son or daughter is living independently, that is living on their own in an apartment without your support, they can receive the full benefit federal rate of $783. We also live in a state that's more expensive to live in. There are several in the country, and because of that, our state of Massachusetts supplements that federal benefit, and the state supplement for living independently is $114.39. So the total benefit for someone, again, living independently is $885. You're more typically going to see someone maybe living in a residential program or living in a household of another. And so that benefit would still be $783. And then the state supplement is different. If you can prove that your son or daughter is paying their fair share of household expenses, then you might be eligible for the $783 benefit. And if you're not, they're going to reduce that by 1/3. So the benefit will be $522. And you'll see the state supplement is $87.58. This is 2020 rates, and they do go up not very much every year, but that's the current rates for 2020. Okay. So let's move to the next slide. The main message I'd like to give for this presentation is that you can work and still get your benefits. There's a lot of myth out there, rightly so, because it's so hard sometimes to get that benefit, and you work so hard to get it, and then you hear that you're going to lose that benefit if you work, and that's simply not true. That's a myth, and I'm going to explain how that is a myth. So let's go to the next slide. Social Security wants people to work. They want you to become self-sufficient. So they've offered these work incentives, we call them, to allow folks to explore work and not worry so much about losing their hard-fought SSI benefit. And this first work incentive is just wonderful. I think it's called the Student Earned Income Exclusion. The acronym is SEIE. And this is available for students who are still regularly attending school and under the age of 22. And they allow the students to make up to, this is gross income, up to $1,870 per month or $7,550 annually. And they won't reduce the cash benefit if they fall into this category. And to qualify, you have to be enrolled in a typical secondary school, 7 to 12, attending at least 12 hours a week. You could also be attending a college or a university at least 8 hours a week, or in a skills training program like Job Corps, working with Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission's vocational counselors. They're pretty flexible. And I'm also sure that right now with online learning, they'll accept that as well. It's not an automatic work incentive. You do have to inform them of that situation of the student. And so what Social Security will typically do is when your son or daughter turns 18, they're gonna just assume that they graduated high school. And we know that many of our kids are not graduating. They're continuing on in post-grad programs or college, and they're still in school. So you really have to let Social Security know that, and you can do so by providing a letter. I can give you a template of a letter that you can fill out, or you could simply just have the school write up a letter that you could submit to Social Security. So if you're in a situation where your son or daughter has had income taken away from them and they're still a student, you should reach out to me and I can help you maybe get reimbursed for that. For some reason, this work incentive ends a month before they turn 22. For what reason, I don't know, but that's the scoop on that incentive. So let's go to the next slide. We also have another incentive called the Impairment Related Work Expense, or IRWE. And this is great. So some of our students are finding that they have out-of-pocket expenses that health insurance isn't covering, and it can be an expense that's costly for them. And if they have these expenses, some of them could be medicine, medical supplies, attending care services, job coaches, transportation. So some students, it wouldn't include the public transportation, but it could cover a cab or an Uber or Lyft ride to get to fixed route transportation. So if you have these expenses, I encourage you to contact me. Save your receipts, contact me, and I can help you apply for this this work incentive. It also requires that you have to submit a form, and I can help you with that. But it will be a way to have them count less of the student's gross income when it comes to calculating that. Let's go to the next slide. So when a student turns 22 and they're no longer eligible for the student earned income exclusion, Social Security will start to reduce the check. Remember, this is a means tested benefit. It's welfare. And so it's going to limit, they will count income after age 22, but they're not going to count 100% of it. And this is a visual to show you how they will reduce. And I'm going to use John as an example. John is earning gross income of $885 a week from work, and his gross earnings are $885. Well, Social Security is going to exclude, they're going to take $85 off of that, and they're going to then chop that in half. And so they're only really going to count $400 of John's earned income. And so they'll reduce that on the check. So John's new payment will be $497.39, but he has his gross income. So you can see in the green that if he wasn't going to work, he's only going to make the $897.39. But if he works, he's making $1,382 a month. So I like this slide because it shows that when you work, you make more income. Sure, your check will be reduced, but it's not going to be, they're not counting all of the earned income. And where the IRWE would come into play is we would say, let's say John has $100 in an IRWE, so he has a job coach, or he's paying for a Lyft or an Uber ride to get to work. We would take that off the earned income as well. So he would have even more in his check. So that's another example of how the IRWE can help. Let's go to the next slide. Reporting earned income is essential, very important, because it prevents mix-ups with Social Security, overpayments, underpayments, which can really lead to mounds of paperwork, which I can help you with, but you really want to avoid that. So we highly recommend that if your son or daughter is working for the first time and they've brought home their pay stubs or their online pay stubs, you have, as a representative payee, your responsibility is to call that in to Social Security. We suggest, if you can, and we're doing it by fax now because the offices are closed, but to fax the pay stubs in, the first 4 pay stubs, so that they have some physical record of your son or daughter's first paychecks in their record. And then thereafter, you can just call it in. We have a mobile reporting app now that you can use. Some parents fax in. I find the most efficient way is to phone using the phone number there. You simply call, you give them your Social Security number, you give them your son or daughter's, and then you just state their gross income. If you have any questions about that, as a benefits counselor, I can help you with that as well. But really, you have to report the income, because let's say John was working and then he was working at TJ Maxx and his seasonal job ended and his income was no longer $885. Well, they're going to still be reducing that check unless you call and say that John has stopped working or reduced his hours. Really important to report your income regularly. So let's go to the next slide. Some other important benefits to consider when your son or daughter turns 18 are getting them onto federal and state housing lists for housing vouchers, considering whether or not you would like them to receive food stamps when they turn 22. If they're receiving SSI, they may be eligible for food stamps. That can help them to be more self-sufficient in your home or wherever they're living. There's rent freezes available. There's lots of other important public benefits that I can explain to you. If you want to call me, we can see if it fits into your son or daughter's individual situation. There is a statewide public housing list that you can put your son or daughter on. It's quite lengthy, but I think it's worth it. You may be surprised that something opens up and they have an opportunity to have a subsidy with their rent. So let's go to the next slide.
Sounds good. One thing I was thinking, Kathy, I'll just mention here, just seeing this about the housing and SNAP food stamps, is that people have asked me, if you have an ABLE account, does it affect SNAP or does it affect your ability to be in public housing? And it does not.
Right.
There's been guidance on both of those that, you know, if you have an ABLE account, it's not going to affect your public housing or your SNAP benefits. So I just thought I'd mention that.
That's great to hear. So student benefits counselors, there's 3 of us in the state. There are adult benefits counselors out there as well. And but the student benefits counselors have specific training and transition and working with students. And there are some unique things with students that adults don't experience. So we can assist you with understanding how to work and still keep your cash benefits, as I've already explained briefly. We can help you plan for self-sufficiency. So, you know, a lot of parents are calling me and they're saying, you know, John wants to work, but we're worried. We don't want him to lose his benefits right away. What can we do? And we can help you come up with a plan of, you know, how to kind of grow the hours and to plan for the future. We can help you navigate the other public benefits, as I mentioned. We'll go to the next slide. Here's the map of where we're located. So I'm in the North District, and these are the offices that I'm responsible for below my name. And then there's 2 other women in the rest of the state. And so we work with students up to the age of 22, and then we'll pair them with an adult benefits counselor when they're no longer eligible for student benefit services or they finish school. Next slide.
Yep. And then Kathy, should we also mention, I guess just explain that MRC covers a portion of the state and then Work Without Limits covers the other portion?
Yeah, we can do that. So we're under a grant from the Social Security Administration, and it requires that 2 agencies split the state. So we split the state with UMass's Work Without Limits. So depending on what county you live in, you'll be either assigned a counselor from Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission, Project Impact, or Work Without Limits.
Yep, sounds good.
And we all have the same trainings, certified work incentive counselor training.
Sounds great.
And this is my contact information. Should you need to contact me, if you're considering getting benefits, I'm happy to speak with you about it. If you're receiving benefits already and you have concerns or questions about what's going on, especially with the current situation with the unemployment assistance and the the CARES Act checks that the stimulus checks people are getting, it's a good idea to check in with a benefits counselor.
Sounds great.
So I would be happy to take questions from families. One thing I didn't mention that I want to mention before is when you receive SSI or SSDI, you do receive health insurance with that benefit. So SSI you receive full Mass Health Standard, and with SSDI after 2 years you receive Medicare. So I didn't mention that, and I wanted to make sure people were aware of that.
Okay, great. I'm going to pull out, so I'm going to cover some of your contact information. Some questions here that people have written. Let's see. Let's see. All right, I don't see. I'm going to, there's a few questions, yeah, that looks like we want to cover. So one is, what can I do if I'm denied benefits?
Okay, so there's a high chance that you will be denied benefits. If you're applying online, the first thing you're going to be is denied SSDI. A lot of families will call me and say, oh no, I was just denied. What they'll do is when you apply online, you're actually applying for SSDI and SSI through the same application, and if your son or daughter has not worked, they're going to be automatically denied SSDI. But that's not to worry you, because you'll get a letter after from SSI approving or not approving that you're eligible. If you're not eligible, which the percentage changes, but it's a high rate, call me, because you can ask for a reconsideration or an appeal. There's several ways you can ask for reconsideration, and I can lead you through that so that it's not so stressful. So not to worry if you're denied. Don't panic. Call me, and I can help you through that.
Okay. And then what happens if I lose my benefits because of work?
So sometimes, as I mentioned, I showed you that when a student is working and their check is reduced, it may not be reduced all the way until they start to work more hours. So around 25 hours, you may see that check is getting really close to zero, and it may go to zero. And if that happens, they'll stop the cash benefit. But the good thing is that you do not lose the insurance, and you do not lose your eligibility. You just simply are not receiving the check. So let's say John's income, he got more hours at TJ Maxx, and his check was zero. He's making more money though, right? He's paying towards Social Security. He's becoming more self-sufficient. So you don't really want to worry, because he'll keep his health insurance under another work incentive called 1619B, and he'll remain eligible for SSI. So if you're in that situation, please call me and I can explain how that works. There's separate work rules with SSDI and SSI. So I want to, if you call me, make sure you can explain to me whether or not you're receiving SSDI or SSI, so that we can explain how that works.
Okay, great. And what about child support? Somebody's asking, will child support impact my ability to receive SSI?
It will, because remember, it's a means-tested benefit, and so child support is income, and it'll count against the eligibility for SSI. So some families are not eligible because their child support is too high.
Okay, great. And then in terms of how should I keep track of how I spend my SSI benefits?
There's a chance that you might be audited at some point, so you really want to keep some good financial records. You certainly want to keep your check stubs. You want to keep if you can, get a spreadsheet and organize it so that you can show what's coming in and what's going out, and what it is, so that if they are to reach out to you for an audit, that you can pull out that sheet and share it with them. I believe Able has a wonderful feature, right, for looking at what's going in and out of the accounts?
Yeah, so Fidelity has, I usually share with people, Fidelity has some great free digital tools that you can take advantage of. And if you link it to, so your attainable account, if you link it to what they call a cash management account, which essentially is a free checking account, by linking to this cash management account, you can then link to what they call full view. And that helps you to categorize and track your ABLE expenses, which is really great. And that's essentially the process for when you have an ABLE account and you want to pay your expenses or bills. You're going to move the money from your ABLE account, say, to your personal checking account, and then pay your bills. And then just keep in mind, once the money leaves ABLE, it's no longer, quote, protected. But like I said, Fidelity, they also offer this free checking account that you can take advantage of, that you can link to full view, and then you can categorize the expenses, which is really helpful for ABLE. Somebody had a comment here. They said DDS ought to be able to assist when folks get denied, correct? Question mark. I hear they are changing how often folks are reevaluated and the process is tougher. Do you keep your benefits while waiting on appeal?
Are you talking about the Department of Developmental Services or Department of Determination, the Disability Determination?
It looks like it's Department of Developmental Services. They're saying DDS.
Okay, because there are two DDSs. That you are, as long as you're in an appeal, officially in an appeal, you keep your benefits while they're reconsidering. Every situation is going to be unique, so I don't want to just blanket and say your benefits are safe. I want to be really careful with that. If that individual has a specific concern, I would encourage them to call me so that I can fully understand the whole situation.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep, it does.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, my son qualified for SSI in March and the monthly amount has changed 3 times with no income changes. Why? Question mark. And does he qualify for a stimulus check?
Wow. They're overwhelmed right now. I know, that the Social Security Administration staff are overwhelmed. I can't answer why that amount is changing. There might be something going on that I don't understand. So it would be, it would be unrealistic for me to comment on that specifically.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
And then
please have them reach out to me. Please call me, because what I can do is, if you sign a release form, I can actually I can look into your situation at Social Security and get a query, and I can actually see what you're receiving for a benefit. I can see what income has been reported, and I actually have access to Social Security administrators who can help me if you're having a problem that you're not having a success with communicating with your office. So please reach out to me.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm going to put your contact info back up again.
Okay.
What about, Kathy, excuse me, sorry, what about earned income? Will they count my earned income if I put it into an ABLE account?
Yep, because it's earned income with the Department of Revenue, so they know you've earned that, and that's why you're limited. That's why Mary mentioned that you're limited to putting, well, now with the new changes, you can put a portion of your earned income into the ABLE accounts. But they do count it, they see it.
Okay, great. And somebody had a question about MEFA college programs. Are there financial aid programs for students with disabilities attending one of these programs? I don't know personally that there's specific programs. I mean, in terms for MEFA, I mean, basically in terms of federal aid, what you need to do is, depending on what school you're going to, everyone's going to fill out the FAFSA. Every school requires that in order to be, considered for federal aid. So you're going to fill out that FAFSA, the federal application for federal student aid. And then some schools also require another application as well that you would also need to fill out. So it really depends on the school. But essentially, in order to be, to qualify or to be considered for aid, you have to fill out the FAFSA. And then there's also another, typically private schools require another form as well. So those would be the two things, likely that you would have to fill out in order to be considered for financial aid. Somebody asked about that.
Yeah, unless things have changed, MEFA is funded through your school, so you probably wouldn't be if you're going through your high school, it's funded through the school district.
Right, right. Yeah, they're talking about, are there financial aid programs for students with disabilities attending? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess I interpreted that as they're looking for financial aid at college, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's funded through
yeah.
the school. Let's see what else anyone's asking here. Another one, can I receive SNAP benefits along with SSI?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You need
Yep,
to apply, and typically it doesn't start till they're 22.
yep,
And
okay.
you would go to the Department of Transitional Assistance in your town and apply. There's actually an application you can download and fill out.
Okay, great. Okay. Anyone else have questions? I'll feel free to type them in. And then just to mention, I mentioned Able National Resource. You can go there, you know, as a resource. They look at all the state plans. You can go there and look at all the state programs and see what one, you know, makes the most sense for you. We tell people, you know, you might look at your home state first because it may offer you some tax incentives that an out-of-state plan doesn't. But it's a great way to, you know, go to that site and you know, compare state programs and just find additional information about ABLE there as well. I don't see any other questions popping in here. Let's see, I think we've covered all of them. Anything else, Kathy, you want to cover?
I think that's it. I strongly encourage folks to reach out to me if you have any additional questions, especially specific ones that I wasn't able to answer here. And just, remember that we're free, we're available, we're working through this crisis that we're experiencing. Oh, one
Yeah.
other thing I wanted to mention, that the pandemic unemployment assistance checks are real. We didn't expect this, and it's kind of a crazy thing. These kids are getting tons of money. They are counting that as unearned income, and you do need to report that income. So you need to call into Social Security and say that they're receiving that income. I'm telling people to, report any gross income and then say separately this is under income. But you do need to be aware that that's going to offset the SSI. That's why it's really great if you have an ABLE account to just pop it in there until we figure out what's going to happen with this excess income they're giving out to SSI beneficiaries. There's really not much guidance out there yet. We're hoping they catch up, but we don't want people to be trapped with all this, overpayments.
And then someone's asking, so when my child's turning 18, what are first steps? What should a parent do?
Specifically for SSI, you want to.
Yeah, I'm assuming. Yeah, it's hard to know because there's not additional info here, but yeah.
So, yeah, one thing I would suggest is there's a wonderful timeline that the ARC of Massachusetts has. It's if you Google the ARC of Massachusetts transition timeline, it'll pop up, and it starts at age 14 and goes all the way up to 22, and it tells you what to do at certain age ranges. It's a wonderful tool.
Oh, that's great.
If you can't find it, feel free to reach out to me and I can send it to you.
Okay. That's great. Okay.
Also, the Federation for Children with Special Needs has what's called the Link Center for Transition, and that's a wonderful resource as well.
Yes, that is a great resource. And they have, I want to say that they have weekly, like Facebook Lives, I believe, that, different.
Yeah, we've done them. Yep.
People should, if you're on Facebook, you should definitely go and, check out what they're offering weekly. But I know that they have weekly programs, depending on the topic, to address some of the things that, we've covered too. I'm going to share my screen again so you all have Kathy's information. This is her contact information. And like she mentioned, feel free, to email her. My email is, I can type it in the chat. It's mrubenis@mefa.org. And I don't see any more questions coming in. So I think we're good. I'll just wait another second. All right, I'll just put my email there. Let's see. Yeah, I think think that was the last one. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining. Kathy, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for being a part of this. And I think that this was fantastic and really helpful. And there's a lot to navigate, but you know, I think just this is a good, the more you hear some of this information, you start to become familiar with it. And so thank you again, this was wonderful. And thank you everyone for joining. And we look forward to doing more of these. So have a good day and take care. Thanks, Kathy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.